My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while. I left my dear home of Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. And when I got to America, it was my duty to go and enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. Well, it was there in those pueblos and hillsides that I learned the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. So amidst all these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side.
All right. My name is Ben Burgess. This is Give Them an Argument. I would say, all these people are joining me, but the truth is I'm just kind of saying hi at the beginning of the episode before I turn over the reins to Jake and Andy's capable hands. But what you just heard was the first minute or so of a song called St. Patrick's Battalion by David Rovics, which is a cover that I actually hadn't heard before last night, but I think I like a little bit better than the original. And since the episode after I leave, I know is going to be about protest music, I figured, as as somebody who in a much lower stake situation, kind of has defected to Mexico, that would be an appropriate one.
Nice.
Yeah,
well,
with the palm trees right there, that's
yeah, much lower stakes, but yeah, that is a true story that's based on about the Mexican American War and a bunch of conscripted recent immigrants from Ireland deciding early on that they were on the wrong side and switching over.
That's awesome.
It is.
Yeah. I love I was thinking like when we're, when you, Andy, you mentioned the theme for the show. You think of like Woody Guthrie and like those songs that are like shooting Nazis and like fascists and like labor solidarity, of course, all the classics and that tradition. But it's great to see, like, of course, an Irish song, there's tons of course, by nature, tons of protest music. Pretty much the whole culture is potentially like a protest against the crown or whatever. But like very fascinating. Yeah, I hadn't heard this thing about, like where there's Irish regiments fighting with the Mexicans. Slancha, I guess, But,
yeah, I was thinking about it. So, last night we were compiling lists of favorite, protest or sort of broadly protestish political songs, and 99% of the Irish stuff that I thought of, I left out of my list, if only because, in an atmosphere of increasing political repression, most of the stuff is like, as more or less openly pro-terrorist, so that's get more squeamish about that. But yeah, I was thinking about it, and the stuff that I came up with last night, right, is I think probably from what Mark is referring to, as the sort of broadly the things that you think of the most, I was thinking about the Billy Bragg version of the Red Flag, which, for anybody who's not familiar, is a song, God knows, maybe they still do. It's sort of, as it gets more hypocritical every decade. But there's a song that they would always sing at Labour Party conferences in the UK. It's the people's flag is the deepest red, is the is the opening line of the song, shrouded in our martyred dead, beneath its folds will live and die, never that sacred emblem fly. So which is, again, I mean, is sort of like there was a moment under Jeremy Corbyn where like it seemed less ridiculous to have these people singing that. But in any case, I really like Billy Bragg's version of it a lot. Anybody wants to go check that out. As far as much more mainstream stuff, I was thinking about Bruce Springsteen song Youngstown, which with the lyrics about the smokestacks rising up like the arms of God, that as a sort of anthem of like kind of what was lost in post-industrial decay in the Rust Belt, has always spoken to me a lot. My mom grew up in Youngstown when the smokestacks were all still there, and when the whole time I was growing up, my grandparents lived there, so we'd go quite frequently, and of course more and more over the decades, right? It sort of went from a certain set of problems, from like everybody having black lungs to the smokestacks, to a very different set of problems in the post-industrial decay, like really, especially in like the 90s and and after that, right? I mean, I can remember like my grandfather always like when he had to drive at night, treating red lights as yield signs, because like that it was so ridiculously high crime, because the poverty rate was so absurd, after the steel plants closed, that like literally, you got nervous about stopping for a minute at a red light. And then yeah, I guess for the top three, I started thinking about anti-war music, and came up with, again, two sort of extremely mainstream things, very different, stylistically from what you usually think of when you think of protest music, and then one that's sort of a better fit, right? So the mainstream things that came to mind were Metallica's One and Black Sabbath's War Pigs, right? That are both really sharp, really powerful, anti-war songs, and in the Sabbath case, like really sort of like in a way where the class politics of it are like really there on the face, right? That they why should the politicians go out and fight the war? They leave that to the poor. And then one that's much less like that, which is much less mainstream, which is John McCutcheon's Christmas in the Trenches, about which, if you're not familiar with it, is about World War One, and this sort of famous incident where they were soldiers on the opposite trenches who had this informal Christmas truce and like played soccer and stuff, and then the next day had to go back to shooting each other.
There's a movie about that too, right? There's
I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, I saw it I did see it.
Yeah. There's a museum in Baltimore which is all about outsider art, and somebody in an insane asylum did a beautiful sculpture about it using like tiny figurines.
So I had a slightly niche fact about it, and then Andy just
Hold
blew
my
me out
beer.
of
The king of niche facts.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting though. You mentioned Springsteen. That's sort of like middle American stuff. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and one of the like, especially if you're in like punk or metal music, but one of the places that you could go see stuff was a total like workers bar that had been open since like the 50s called Pat's in the Flats, and it was like surrounded by like empty lots, steel mills, and like its whole business was like people getting off of work. It was only open until about like 6 p.m. until people got off of work, had a beer, a couple beers, it would close, and then someone convinced them. But like that became like a center for like punk rock. And it was like a very interesting like Clevelandy collision of like this like you know, in post-industrial wasteland. The steel mills had been shutting down throughout the 80s and 90s. You know, like I was hanging out there in the early 2000s, and it was like definitely like a few were active. I think maybe I don't even know if there's might be one still going. But anyways, like it was like that was Cleveland anyways. Like so many of these cities like diminishing, blah, blah, blah. But it made possible like rock and roll, you know, or there is that dynamic, you know, like and some of it was, you know, politically active. And I know another space in Cleveland was also like formerly the CPUSA space. And it was like became like a DIY venue called Speak in Tongues. So it was like always intermingled a little bit. Like I went to like a really political hip hop, like Free Mumia show there once. And like that felt really relevant back in 97 or whatever it was. But like, but I think it's that there's an interesting thing when I think like Bruce talks about it, but just like these kinds of things where like throughout the latter 20th century, you just have like America declining and like something being lost, and like these themes kind of, you know, or like as like the working sort of like traditional, you know, like work one parent in a couple works in a factory and has a good union job that gets them the house and the burbs and the whole, all that stuff. But like, as that sort of slowly declines, or like what that means also becomes like this thing, you know, that like people catch on to.
Yeah, and I mean, Billy Joel even wrote his version of that song. It was Allentown.
I was gonna say Ben prefers Bruce to Allentown. I'm sure.
Which I did not know this. I'd never seen the music video before, but I watched it. That is one of the most homoerotic things I've ever seen.
Well, does Bruce start with the actual sound effects of people like hammering shit? Because that is, you know, I'm actually a huge Billy Joel fan / apologist, but you know, you got to start the song with the actual sounds of the work.
No, it goes through the whole song too. Like you know, you're
that's true. They actually kind of made it into a beat, which is that's pretty cool. So
yeah, no,
maybe Bruce takes it. Maybe Bruce takes it.
Bruce I think just writes the better song of the two. And that is not a slight to Billy Joel. It's just, you know, Bruce things operating at a different level.
I'm with you on
that. Yeah, sociopolitically for sure. Melodically, Billy's pretty good, but he tended to be pretty blunt when it came to his songwriting, especially. The music video confused me. I don't know what that was about. It confused you and made you question, what you like, and
like why are these muscular men showering in the middle of the video?
Yeah.
Fair enough. So I am going to make my exit, I think. I am it's funny. There was some weirdo in the chat who was getting worked up about gender ideology, which seemed so distant from any topic that was discussed here. It was very odd to me, but and I'm going to affirm conservative family values by spending my birthday with with my loved ones rather than talking about politics on YouTube. So I am off to do that. But as I said, I will leave it in you guys' very capable hands, and I will see you next week. probably before I leave, we should plug the show with Jason, which is going on a week from Thursday at the El Rio in San
Oh, lovely,
Francisco.
lovely space. That's great.
Yeah. I was told since the last time I plugged it that, it's very important to some people to say the El Rio rather than just El Rio, although that seems a little odd to me because that, you're saying the Rio, but, whatever.
You say
rolls
ATM
off-
machine, you could say the El Rio.
They say all sorts of stuff out there, but I did spoken word poetry there once, like years and years ago, and it feels like a different lifetime, but I love it. Yeah, I like that place.
Fair enough. Well, we're going to be there at 6:00 on Thursday, April 17th. Me, Jason Miles, talk about Trump and the end of history. Should be a fun show. We will throw in a link. I don't think there's one in there right now, but we'll throw in a link into the description for the episode. And with that, I am out. You guys have fun.
Here's a toast to Ben. Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Happy birthday.
All right. Okay, let's get into
But
it.
yeah, so is it Bruce or is it Billy? No.
I think I'm gonna have a hard time winning that one.
No,
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
no,
like
we could
Joel,
say that "Goodnight Saigon"
no-
is the best anti-Vietnam War song ever written.
is it though?
I'm kidding. I love Billy Joel as like a musician. As a lyricist, I'm not gonna go there and say that. I can't. Goodnight Saigon is the best. Again, that one starts with the choppers. I don't think he the sound effect of the choppers. I don't think he actually made it into a beat. But which is
that would be the
level. But let's get into it. Andy, it was kind of your idea to get this center the show around this topic. So I'll let you kick it off.
So I wrote a faux opening argument, and I do want to, unlike how Ben usually does it, I want this to be a little bit more democratic. So if you feel like I skipped over something, and I skip over a lot in this because I'm covering like 100 years worth of music in here, feel free to mention something, because there's a lot in here. There's stuff that's going to be missed, and but I think I got it all here. As many viewers know, I spend my time finding some of the funniest videos off of Rumble. And as you might know, that I also spend a lot of time seeing live music. I actually watch the live music to kind of cleanse my soul after watching some of the most horrible things from Rumble. But according to my concert archives in 2024, I saw 110 performances during 35 concerts with 97 bands. So I see a lot of music. For me, music is an escape from the horrible videos I watch, not necessarily listening to albums, which I actually do while working on graphics, but it's not as an escape. But that experience of a live show can be transcendent. I do it to chase a high from the frenzy that a band like Big Bad Bollocks can drive the crowd into, or how Moxie Früvous just their shows just peak and crest, and you're just going along with it, or how Brainiac just makes you want to dance. I'm always chasing after that, but I know not every show can do that. There are other kinds of shows that I appreciate too. There's experimentation, drawing in the audience in a way like that's amazing. Whenever you see like somebody up there who can just quietly bring people into what they're doing. Doing stuff with a melody and contrasting sounds. There's just so many things I look for in good music. But for the most part today, we're going to be focusing on lyricism. And that's the most important thing when it comes to a political song. As Pamela Means says, who couldn't join us tonight, protest songs are love songs. And I kind of love that idea right there, because you do that because, you're writing these songs because it's something that you love. I also want to add something that They Might Be Giants saying. What I care about is music, and communists have the music. First, I want to say that there's two types of political music. There's something radical, like when Ryuichi Sakamoto named his synth band the Yellow Magic Orchestra to challenge how Westerners saw them and their music. Which, it's like a personal political, or how Saida Babataliba released Scream, which is spelled, by the way, S is in parentheses. So it's like cream is out. Yeah, it's but it's an album where it's a woman owning her sexuality in a way that would make Prince blush, which ironically, after hearing that album, Prince actually recruited her guitarist for Third Eye Girl. So there you have it. But yeah, the personal politics is important. But the focus I want to be more on is the societal political song. And although some songs do overlap, like Color of the Skin or by Pamela Means, which is a great song, or Aaron McKeown's Queer Gospel, which I got to see performed live recently, which is amazing. Just a little side story. When they went to record Queer Gospel, I actually curated the music studio that was being recorded at. So I kind of feel like there's a little piece of me in that EP that she recorded. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, Color of the Skin would make more out of I'm going to skip that part. I don't even know when I wrote that. There's always been political songs before the 20th century. Unless you worked for a publishing company, typically the songs you didn't know who the artists of the songs were. They get handed down. This genre of music that became the foundation of gospel, folk, and jazz and blues. This primordial soup of music that gave us the Black experience, gave us warnings about the police and white people. But I think Joe Hill's probably the first recognized name in the protest song. At the turn of the century, one tactic used by bosses was to have the local Salvation Army brass band play tunes to drown out the local organizers. And just a fun aside, my dad's side of the family actually has a long history with the Salvation Army, and my earliest memories is going to church there at the Salvation Army in Marietta, Georgia, hearing the brass band. But a common tune that was played was There's Power in the Blood of the Lamb, which in 1913, Joe Hill rewrote to be the popular There's Power in a Union. And so just imagine they're trying to drown out these speakers playing the song, and then the audience just starts singing, There's power, power, power in a union. It's like that's got to be a great moment. I wish we actually have some recordings of Joe Hill performing. But unlike having a publisher back then, the Wobblies distributed his music. So when he was martyred in 1915, they helped his music and his story grow. His music still is performed and recorded to this day. Woody Guthrie is the next stop, labor activist and chief hobo correspondent on California radio. He continued the legacy of Joe Hill. He wrote the first anti-Trump song, which Billy Bragg rewrote back in 2017. Invented the concept album, and toured along singing to protesters and making trouble with Pete Seeger, who I actually have met before back in 99 or 2000, and Paul Robeson. Like Joe Hill, Woody Guthrie, like how Joe Hill inspired Woody Guthrie was the inspiration of Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's where we have the modern interpretation of the protest song. His songs are both timeless and yet very modern. He updated classic folk songs and wrote those of his own. Bob Dylan inspired a whole laundry list of people, which I'm not going to get into. The 60s were important to our story for two things. One, finally having the tradition of folk music, which Joe Hill, Woody Guthrie, and Pete Seeger have all been involved with, became popular music. Bob Dylan did not necessarily make this trend happen, but he was the beneficiary of the popularity. And two, the record A&R guys, the people whose job it is to go out and find acts for the record labels, were filled with very young people because the previous generation of A&R guys didn't understand 60s rock. So they signed bands that would likely never have gotten signed by someone from the older generation, like Frank Zappa or the Velvet Underground, early Pink Floyd. Some good examples of that. This allowed an anti-establishment songs and singles to appear on the pop charts. Which brings me to the meme of, oh, Bush or Trump, whenever they say this is in office, you're going to get some great art, and there's always great art. However, A&R men of the 60s were became part of the establishment, and they're not gonna allow something as radical as what happened in the 60s happen again. Not to say that there weren't hits, that there weren't like major label artists doing this kind of stuff. Record labels weren't looking for the next The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five in the 80s. In the grunge area, they weren't looking for a chance for the John Lennon of the generation leading protest because of Kurt Cobain's suicide, but the end of a possibility of seeing that. However, there were a couple of scenes in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that are now seen as important. They weren't at the time, mostly due to the fact that the baby boomers drowned out a generations of music because of their buying power. I mean, just growing up in the 80s, Mark, I know, can attest to this. The music was dominated by like nostalgia acts. It was like, Paul Simon was having hits, and George Harrison, and I mean, this song is just whatever, 6 words long. That's the Weird Al version. Not a good song, but because it was George Harrison, it was a massive pop hit. The Beach Boys were having hits. So you had like bands like The Clash, The Dead Kennedys, Crass, Flipper, Gang of Four, which R.I.P. their bassist Dave Allen passed away over the weekend. The Proletariat, which is basically the Gang of Four but Marxist. And the Bad Brains are some important bands of the era. Rock Against Reagan tour happened, yet isn't talked about the same way as Woodstock, but it should be. I wish I could talk more about conscious rappers of the 80s and 90s. It's a genre that's still popular today. I really can't talk about the genre because my knowledge in hip hop begins and ends with 90s party music, New Jack Swing, and the Wu-Tang Clan. But The Coup by Boots Riley, his band, absolutely should be in the conversation. For the past 25 to 30 years, popular music has been dominated by corporate-produced bands. This isn't a knock to some talented musicians, but the satirical takes of Katy Perry doesn't have much depth. Unless you're Green Day, with American Idiot, to my knowledge, might be the last popular protest album. You're not gonna become successful. The Chicks, who were the Dixie Chicks back then, were canceled because they spoke out against George W. Bush. And there never really were a political band. I mean, they kind of considered are now, but I don't think they really have deep politics or anything. Country music descended, which is truly a descendant of what Joe Hill and Woody Guthrie was doing, became fascist with songs like Toby Keith's "Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue Angry American" with the line, "And you'll be sorry you'll be sorry you messed with the US of A, because we'll put a boot in your ass. That's the American way." Popular music is full of safe acts. It isn't to say that there isn't music that isn't being made that's unsafe and dangerous and contains ideas that confronts corporations that run the businesses and widely challenges authority. Tonight we're going to talk about that music. But before we do, Layla Eskin, and I hope I said her name right, of Heat Death, who couldn't join us this evening, she also wishes Ben a happy birthday, wrote to me to tell me that she couldn't come in, couldn't join us like the graphic says, but she wanted me to tell y'all, musical is an absolutely important, even when it sometimes feels like it's screaming into the void of sadness, doom and gloom. It's not only an outlet for anxiety about the past, present, and future, but it's music that connects us all throughout time. The art behind crafting a great political song isn't just shouting statistics, which I know, Mark, you did in Pissinger.
Pissinger, yeah, rest in Pissinger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which then she said, "LOL, I still love System of the Down." But it is important to tell a story of what affects you in your daily life, what you see around you, and what your imagination can envision for a possible, good or bad. And even though I'm huge on the doom and gloom lyricist, I feel that challenging the channeling, sorry, I feel that channeling that energy into a song brings a connection of positivity into the world, than division, and that fucking rules. Which I completely agree. And I have to say, like, even though her lyrics are very doom and gloom, those songs are so fun. Of Heat Death.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. You mentioned, System of a Down. I was going to say like that. You know, what I think what's interesting about you, because you talked about like kind of the long shadow of the boomers, which I think is kind of like a good way of definitely like has colored our cultural history from the 60s forward, right? And it does feel like, you know, it like shifted from like their radical politics to like it's hip to be square or whatever. But like
I do have a secret love of Huey Lewis.
Like by the because like I remember the 80s. I was a kid then, but like by the 90s is like when I became a teenager and so forth. But it was like it did feel like interesting because I just remember like it was like vegan punk rockers. It was like like music had splintered. The left, I guess, had splintered in some way, like kind of important ways. But you'd find pockets of politics or that kind of stuff within different like subcultures, you know, which is essentially like, even though, yes, the 80s were like the mainstream culture was very like conservative, kind of, to simplify, but like underground obviously like was the college rock, the, you know, Minor Threat and all that sort of stuff. What emerged as counterculture or whatever, I guess, like had political sort of like interesting political slants, you know. And in the 90s, I remember at times being a little bit like off put by it. You know, it's like, why are you so militantly vegan? You know, yeah, sure. But like, or, you know, like I remember like Rage Against the Machine being big, and like in retrospect, awesome. Tom Morello's a good comrade and like all this stuff. But I was like young and snooty. So I was like, oh, that's mainstream. They're hypocrite. It's like the cell phone argument against, you know, socialism or whatever. It's like, oh, you have a cell phone. But anyways, like it's funny, but like looking back on it, like that was an interesting thing, I guess, that they were pretty radically like that is how I learned about the Zapatista like struggles. And it was a little piece of my radicalization too. You know, but like, or like Riot Girl, like I remember going to college and people were in and like it was, I guess, in that one of those categories that you talked about, more of like the identity as radical politics level, but like definitely radical politics and feminine, like actively feminist, you know. And those are like, you know, in terms of like great like protest music, you gotta, you know, kind of have to give it up there too. But like it's interesting because I also think like now, like fast forward into our like slide into fascism or whatever's going on right now, like super anthem-y stuff that just says like we have to have solidarity, where once in my life I might have been like, oh, that's too whatever. It's like at this point, like like whatever, you know.
Yeah,
you're it. Like we need, you know, like say
you're in the
thing.
front row at the Rage Machine yelling, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Right. You know, and it's interesting because like you know, I do remember every time, maybe it happened in the 80s, but it didn't happen in like Trump 1. Like punk rock was supposed to get good, but it also just could be that I'm like old or whatever. But like, you know, I do remember like you remember Downtown Boys from Rhode Island? They're probably still around. They're like punk, like very politically, like overtly left-wing punk. I think they're from Rhode Island. Maybe that came out then. The Jesse Wells train.
What I was gonna say is just because Mr. Spencer brings up Jesse Wells. Jesse Wells is a folk singer who got big, kind of in the maybe like a classic Woody Guthrie. Well, he doesn't sound like Woody Guthrie, but you know, like old fashioned, really like. And honestly, it's part of an aesthetic too. He got really big on TikTok first, I think. he's always would be performing like outside, and he just looks vintage. But he just played fucking like Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. And his songs were like the one on late night TV, I think, was less explicit, but his songs were like basically explicitly pro-worker protest stuff. But it was interesting. I feel like there's this kind of organic upswell now happening on like social media and stuff like that, where he's one of the first guys who I think has kind of risen, you know, I think also like there are people who made like murder ballads about like Mangione and stuff like that got big on TikTok. So I've seen it personally almost in that like harkening back really to that folk tradition that we're talking about now, which kind of makes sense. Punk, yeah, it's hard to say. I think I agree with you. Nothing comes to mind, but also as someone who doesn't go to the same underground venues that I used to go to, there might be some really awesome stuff coming out that I'm just not aware of. I always think it's like a different conversation of like, is good shit being put out, or also like what's rising to public, like broad public. I feel like there's always good artists, right? But who's like you were mentioning, Andy, who's actually, you know, putting people onto that stuff is like a larger public to that stuff is a totally different question. But I think, you know, to see someone like that on like Fallon or whatever, it shows that there's like a huge desire for it right now. I think even in kind of a mainstream setting, which is interesting. Also, we should mention that some commenters are already doing it, but we want to hear from you guys too on what what your favorite stuff is. We're probably gonna try to put a playlist together of everything that we mentioned, but
it's just going to be Allentown over and over again.
Different covers and
our own
it's just the same
our own covers.
But it's, you know, I think like folk is a good example, and country, right? Like country was even like in the 60s, 70s, like it was kind of radical. It was like pretty left wing, like Willie Nelson's out there. They're like sort of like, you know, like like working man freedom, screw the cops, you know, kind of stuff. And like that's obviously, like you mentioned, it's completely, so much mainstream country is like I have like heard some of these songs. It's kind of wild. I mean, it also like pandering to like probably like a boomer audience of reactionaries, but like, you know what I mean?
Well,
I
think actually more Gen X. Like if you hear it, it's more like hard rock now. And I think what it is trying to get the Gen Xers who like grew up listening to like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, you know, who want to hear more rock music. And I mean, I've said this to Jason before. I don't think I've ever said this on the main show. I've said it in post games and whatnot. But I think that grunge is not a genre of music, but a period of time. Because like, you know, if you think about it, like the three big grunge groups is Nirvana, which is more punk, Pearl Jam, that's more classic rock, and the third one I usually throw in is Soundgarden, which is a little more like metal rock. You know, I mean, you know, they're closer to classic rock, but like that classic rock and metal hype, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think Melvins is probably a better example, but they weren't as big as Soundgarden. But I think like right there, you can kind of see like grunge is not a genre of music. It is just a time period of when like rock music was coming out. So I don't think it's a good description, but I do think like what it is people who listen to grunge, and you know, because there's those great guitar hooks in a lot of those songs. You know, you go back to listen to like the Rooster. You know, so you have such great guitar licks in that song, and like country music steals a lot of that kind of licks, and it's all about like a lot of it is about just having fun and drinking. You know, I hate to say that, like I met somebody who ended up going on and writing a bunch of country pop songs now, and that's mostly what he's writing about, is just, you know, going out drinking with your friends, and nothing wrong with that, you know, but like that's not what I think of when I think of country.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it kind of feels like there was something with like, I guess like that, like Willie Nelson, like there was a time when it did feel like it was a little more connect. I mean, I think generally too, like
And I mean, Willie
more
Nelson never
stuff was
stopped.
working class coded anyways, like because it was the 70s and 80s or whatever. But
Yes.
it was like more obviously like anti like authority and so forth. But yes, like and then yeah, you mentioned like the chicks, Dixie Chicks and stuff. Like that was like the first ever like cancellation, and it was like it was like because they like dared to offend the imperial order. I mean, like this is like stuff like if we look at what's happening now with like folks getting like disappeared for their beliefs, like you know what I mean, and students and so forth. Like it's like that was a very much like of a harbinger thing, and of course, like you know, it's very interesting because yeah, they're not like an overtly political band, but they were policed for like daring to like say that like they didn't think the Iraq War was good,
Right.
which
Yeah,
but like that
remember,
was
Pearl Jam vanished right around that same time, and Pearl Jam was always kind of anti-war
right,
political in a way.
right,
I'm not gonna,
yeah,
I don't think of them as a political band, but they would talk about politics. And like
sure,
right around 9/11, you stopped hearing from Pearl Jam.
yeah. I mean, that was definitely like a big shifter. Like you couldn't,
And they were still putting out music. I'm not saying that they weren't. They just
yeah. Was it that some band had to like change their album cover because they were like blowing up the Twin Towers on it might have been the coup. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, and I
but
think
it
it was
was like
supposed to come out on like 9/11 too, or something like
something.
that.
Yeah. It was like ridiculous, like something like that happened. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was a big shift in terms of like pop music, too. Like you couldn't things took a little turn.
Do you remember
from like
the list of banned songs from the radio?
right,
Clear Channel, which I think is now iHeartRadio.
right,
Clear Channel created a list of songs that you couldn't play on the radio anymore, which included "It's a Beautiful World" by Louis Armstrong,
right.
which is a great song. I mean, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, like it's so
like why would you
it-
not play that song? Like, I know, and like also, how many times do you ever hear that on the radio anyways? Like it's not played very often. So it's not like it's gonna, it's gonna upset people.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like there was certainly like a kind of interesting like little shifts that happened where like like yeah, I mean, I guess it comes back to like how I like discovered radical music or whatever, which was like always somewhat like radicalism and music were always, again, boomer, growing up in the shadow of the boomers, they were always tied together, right? Like Woodstock was also about politics too, right? Like even though it's kind of neutered or whatever, but like that was like they were doing, the Grateful Dead played for the played with the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Happened. They're all in the Bay Area. They're like, whatever. Right. Like, but like, in my lifetime, you would see that like radical edge constantly get sucked away by capitalism, by the way, to where like music, then it goes from being like the people's song that has no copyright and that we share as a folk, whatever, to like a commodified product that signals I'm on the, like this side or whatever. And like that's something like we can see, you know what I mean? Like you could just track every like the 60s people that didn't die of overdoses or whatever, but like you know what I mean, you can see them like kind of like get rich, get out of touch, sell out, and even in the 90s it was like selling out was like a big deal, but then like some point it stopped mattering because like capital was winning or like that's the only way to survive, anyways.
Because I mean like Kurt Cobain had that that's weird balancing act that he tried doing because he was signed to a major label, biggest band in the world, and was trying not to appear sold out, and would also like a bunch of weird bands got signed because Kurt Cobain said he really liked like the Butthole Surfers.
Right.
I think it's interesting too. Kind of going what you're bringing up, Mark. To watch that Dylan movie that just came out, A Complete Unknown. That's really the central conflict. Is that Seeger wants him to kind of staying folk or not going electric. To me, the concept of going electric being controversial is just like funny at this point. But I understand historically. It's like, oh no, did you hear? Like I can't.
Right.
Like I can't sleep now. Like
just
Dylan went
love
electric.
Pete Seeger there. Like I'm trying to turn off the power.
Yeah. No, yeah, but it's interesting though because I think the movie is obviously plays.
I haven't seen the movie. I just know the story.
Well, the movie shows that, and it is a good scene. But and the movie does portray Seeger very positively, I will say. However, I do think we're supposed to sympathize or empathize with Dylan's turn, right, from this political music. But I think as a leftist watching it, it's not that I need art to be super didactic pro-leftist or anything like that, but it was hard to kind of not feel a sense of loss there from because turning away from the kind of protest music, he turned to electric rock and roll music, but it was also very individualistic, right? And it was it's literally him on a motorcycle riding away from the Newport Folk Festival. But I feel like that when you're talking about the boomer generation, like I feel like that era of rebellion became very individualistic, right? Like I'm gonna fucking do it my way, right? I'm gonna ride a motorcycle, which goes back to not just the boomers, but let's say like 40s, 50s, right? Like leather jacket, motorcycle riding, that vision of independence, right? Which I think also is super prevalent in like a lot of 70s films, right? Like, but
I think it's like a evolution of the cowboy.
Yeah, 100%. But that is it's definitely a loss of a type of class consciousness, right? In terms of in favor of an individual consciousness that I think ultimately the movie kind of endorses, but I think it was a fun movie from a historical perspective.
Like a perfect liberal movie where it's but you really want to just tuck back a little and look, you're a cultural touchstone. Yay,
it's a liberal it's a liberal movie in the sense that it's not going to like vilify the socialists per se, right? Which would make it more
but see this child movie. Something to move beyond.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Seeger is seen as he's basically portrayed like Mr. Rogers, like just the nicest fucking guy who was maybe
which he was nice,
right?
Yeah, which I believe.
No, I mean that's
your firsthand experience. He was nice.
but like maybe there's something a little naive there, right? And then there's all these like expectations. Maybe in being involved in like a larger left-wing solidarity movement is seen by Dylan as like kind of shackling, like I'm not who you guys think everyone has this idea of who I'm supposed to be, and saying shit like that over and over again,
right? But
but I think but you gotta let go of a little bit of I don't want to say individuality, but you can't just there's a communal idea, I guess, which was kind of,
and I think that's also partly
music. Yeah.
What Kurt Cobain was, rubbing up against, which I think more had to do with his suicide than Courtney Love.
I wish that he dealt with it the same way that Dylan dealt with it. Like, I guess they did go acoustic.
Yeah,
on Unplugged,
he did. Yeah,
but that would be the opposite. But I wish that Dylan could have died of an overdose, or he could have died of an overdose for all we know, but he did it.
Yeah.
And the movie just makes him, he just kind of like acts like an asshole to various beautiful women. And that's how he deals with it. And it works out for him, which is not nice, but it's better than he's still with us. I kind of wish Cobain just was kind of a dick instead of making the decision that he ultimately made.
I do think that Cobain did actually tease that like Nirvana was going to have a sound change on their next album.
Right.
Like right before his suicide. And I remember sitting there in art class and we're all kind of discussing like what could it be? Like what was Nirvana's next thing? And they all laughed at me when I said synthesizer.
Well, like I think in an interview, we're getting into the weeds, but there's some interview where he's like, I want to make new wave music. But it's interesting because his songs have that like anthemic quality, and they're not quite like smash the state, you know, blah blah blah, but they do like poke at like how messed up society, concepts of society are, and they do play off of like they do it through like a mirror, maybe more than like a pedestal, but they do it like they do kind of like even Smells Like Teen Spirit, which, you know, like like the song like apocryphally whatever is like someone else like wrote that in the van or whatever, but like it does point out like if you look at the like lyrically, it's like the emptiness, the youth like looking for something, you know what I mean? Like it shows that disaffection that I think is like the undergirding of like finding something or like protesting something, I guess, you know, of protest music. And
I think
and that became a huge hit, which is kind of like it is a little crazy, but like,
yes. And like the Specials, I think also kind of did that with Ghost Town, which is kind of like it doesn't quite come to the realization of like, you know, labor organizing like Springsteen would have, or even Allentown, but it does kind of touch on some of that that like emptying out of the city and that like driving around trying to find something to do, that I think you know, Kurt Cobain certainly was tapping into. But I will say, if you really want to get into some more political stuff, the Specials did do Free Nelson Mandela, which is a great song. The Specials were part of the two-tone ska movement of the late 70s, early 80s. Just a bunch of bands kind of arrived at the same time, doing a punk version of a Jamaican folk genre, which is kind of crazy. And they'd have like horn sections, which a lot of punk bands didn't have. And that was kind of the basis of what we now think of as ska. But the Specials were probably my favorite of the original two tones.
Oh yeah. The Message to You, Rudy. It's interesting you bring them up. I mean, like English, I guess if you like look at like protest capabilities, there's also like the interesting thing where like English society being so class oriented pushes bands to often like signal much more politically than like your average American band. Like punks,
so there's a lot of
the Ramones, even like the Sex Pistols have like overtly anarchist things, or like whatever happened to Johnny Rotten since then, but like they were overtly like kind of left wing. You know, the Specials and like the ska bands were like Jamaican communities hanging out with like punks, like so like interracial, you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff too.
There was a whole thing called the skinhead movement, which is you know, then got co-opted by the right wing, but like, you know, what's his name, the BBC DJ did a great Don Letts, I think his name is. Did a great documentary about like skinhead, the history of skinheads, and you know, it's close tied to the two-tone movement. And it's just working class kids didn't really care that they were different races. Just like, oh no, this stuff that your parents listen to, the ska, you know, which is a jazz, you know, it's more like, you know, that's how it relates to other music, is jazz. And I know around where we live, there's a great band called the Valley Moon Stompers, which is actually going back to that original jazz tradition of ska. You know, it's a ska without the punk, and they're actually really good. They do a killer cover of the Game of Thrones theme song.
You know, it's funny, I guess also with protest music, you also just can be like, there's reggae music. Like pretty much so much of it is so openly like and necessarily and like beautifully like doing that kind of stuff, of course. But yeah, no, I find it really interesting that like England, like you do get like a lot of very like class oriented kinds of bands too, and like a different way, like a different kind of rebellion. Like I also think in the States, like one of the most radical bands we had was MC5. Out of, you know, like who were like Maoists, White Panthers, like totally radical, openly so. but also really drugged out and like partying. So like, you know, you know, like a good, like they were like coming out of the 60s, late 60s or whatever, like they were keeping that radical flame alive that probably some of the Dylans had now backed up, like they'd gone off to, you know, explore themselves or whatever they're doing. But in England, yeah, it's like these very, you know, like, and like there was like the peculiarities of like, you know, like the similar to what was happening here too, but like the anti-fascist concerts that like the Clash and like stuff would do, or like the, you know, like skinhead culture got co-opted by the right wing. So there was like there was like a MAGA type stuff going on back there, and the crappy economy. And then like, you know, bands would like then like rock against racism or whatever. It's interesting, you know, how it takes slightly different form there, or it can, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I do think punk started in the States and then kind of got picked up by a lot of the Brits, and then they made it famous. But partly because, like, I think they had a way to platform like new forms of music that we don't. I mean, you know, me and you tomorrow could come up with like the most catchy new kind of version of pop that sounds nothing like anything else, but it's not going to go anywhere because, you know, we're just because of capitalism here in the States. But if we were like in Canada or England, they actually do allow like these smaller bands to actually have a chance to get up onto a bigger stage to show off like what culturally is being developed. So you know, but we still have spaces that actually do that, and I think we as leftists should also kind of seek that out. I don't know of any around here, but there used to be like the what's that place, the Bay State Hotel, which you know, was a DIY kind of scene. If you actually went into there, it was actually an old hotel. On Sundays they'd have like brunch with like a bunch of old ladies going out there. They play bingo there. The wallpaper was this tacky floral thing, and then during the weekends they'd have like a weird mix of punk and folk groups just get together and do shows where everything kind of blends together. And so like you know, you'd have like the Big Bad Bullocks, which like they're they're like because the front man's from England, there is a bit of that classism and stuff, but most of their songs are about drinking. Almost all of them. But even their love songs, yeah, even their love song is called "She's Drunker Than I Am." But it's a beautiful song too, by the way. But anyways, like, yeah, and there was this weird I mean, there was some political stuff that was happening in those bands, like for instance, the Stone Coyotes. It was a front woman was actually had some pop hits in the 60s or maybe early 70s as like a singer songwriter, and then she had a family and then formed a band with her husband and son or something like that. I don't remember the story exactly off the top of my head, but they got a great song called "Give Me the Money," which is all about like, you know, why do you get to have a yacht? Give me some of that money.
Right.
It's like all about redistribution. It's kind of awesome.
I mean, I guess she's a little bit controversial now, but like MIA's song, like all I want to do is bang, 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 take your money. And she does, I know, like, I don't want to, I'm not up to date. And I feel like she said some controversial things, but she generally like has right, like as
I think she shifted.
Yeah, something, right? Like I don't want to speak for her like Paul, but I know there was a time when I was like, she's pretty cool, she's radical, she's on our side. She would rock like Palestinian flags a little bit, I think. You know, stuff like that, like even before you know, October 7th or whatever. But like anyhow, like I also was gonna say out in England now, maybe, or like in the Isles of Britannia and non-Britannia, but like hip hop maybe seems to be like an avenue for like more like radical politics, like the North Irish Belfast based hip hop group that Kneecap. They like rap three quarters in Gaelic and stuff, or Irish, and like do so out of like openly like radical stances about culture.
I think
and
in North America, we have what is it? The Red. Oh man, I'm now blanking on the name of the group, but there's actually some Native American hip hop groups that are very very political. And I say North America because like they're kind of like parts of them are from the United States, parts of them are from Canada because their tribe, crosses the border. So like they're kind of just North American in a way that few things aren't. What is it like? The Red Nation, I think it is. I think that's
I want to like look it up. I think I've heard of that.
Tribe Called Red. That's it. Tribe Called Red.
Yeah.
So it was a play on a different hip hop group.
Yeah. And then there's what's his name? There's like an English guy who did an album called like The Price of Living. And he's like oh shoot, I'm blanking on his. I'm so sorry. Anyways, but it's like coming from England and like completely like discussing the class politics, the bullshit of having the queen, the struggles that like regular people face, and so forth. But yeah, no, like it's been like like hip hop is like definitely also like always like I think by nature has to be like protest music, probably. Not for me to say, of course, but like so it's like I feel like those kinds of like strains like kind of continue on, but also like every kind of music can also get like sucked in by the enemy, like country music that's like patriotic crap, Nazi punks or whatever, any of it, like Ben Shapiro has a rap, right? Like awful, like it's really bad, but like he does.
I think we watched on this show because of course we would have to watch
right
like
I was gonna say that would make sense.
It's that rapper, it's this Canadian
Tom McDonald
rapper,
I believe it is.
Tom McDonald.
Totally. It's a strange, right? Like there's a whole ecosystem, I guess, now, which is pretty wild to think about, considering like the roots of like so much of our culture, especially here in the United States. It's like comes from oppression and working class, and like the opposite of like crazy, like like of giving a verse to Shapiro to like it's awful. Anyways, sorry, I don't know why I thought of that. It's kind of making me sad.
Shapiro.
That's not going on the playlist. So
Shapiro,
right.
He actively talked about, I'm sure still believes that rap music isn't real music because of a ridiculously restrictive view of what music is or isn't. That I think for any like serious critic or just almost anyone, but just from like a straight up like intellectual perspective, it's just completely idiotic, let alone a political perspective. Just about like the fact that there's not like it's not like written music with like chords or something like that.
But like sampling is truly a brilliant art form that like goes back to like
of course, the
60s, even with like those early synthesizers where like they played like the tape loops. And then of course,
it's like a people's art form. It happened because people like couldn't afford instruments, have the space for it, and blah blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't being taught in school.
And like, and it repurposes, like, especially like old hip hop's like repurposing this culture that it's Fascinating. Oh, and I remember the UK hip hop. It's
Nice.
a group called Bob Villain, VY, maybe 2 L's AN, but it's like thrash and hip hop. And it's like there's a rapper and then probably a producer guitarist. But great.
Yeah.
Very political. They have a song that's like England's ending. I don't know. Very like, it's definitely like, of course, like speaking to like a different experience than American, but like very anthemic, very like, you know, like he like there's definitely, he's just directly says like F the Queen, and it's like I vibe with that sentiment too, you know, like I don't believe in royalty, but anyways, you know, it's like that's who it is. And quite a deliberate name choice to play off of Bob Dylan too.
Right.
Actually, but anyhow, yeah, like so yeah, you know, and I wonder, like, it's again not for me to say, but like it feels like there's probably discussions in hip hop of like, because hip hop has become so commercialized,
Yes,
such a massive, huge thing, and like I'm sure there are heads debating left and right about like, is this good? Is this like, you know, what's wrong with the underground stuff? Why is, you know, I don't know. But like, you know, in the most massive forms, right, you do have like radical aesthetics, I guess, perhaps like associated with certain artists that maybe one might wonder if like how radical they could be, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was an argument that was happening online, at least. I saw a lot about, if you take someone like Kendrick Lamar, is a brilliant artist and very political, but probably not so political that, or at least, you know, that maybe they can't be played at the Super Bowl or something. And he I don't want to say that he never delves into specifics, but he's usually not explicitly anti-capitalist, let's say, but
he, not in the same way like Public Enemy was.
No, he talks explicitly about like police brutality. But I saw a lot of people arguing about, you know, there was just a lot of political symbolism from his Super Bowl performance, for example, and then some people saying like, oh, that's great, and then other people saying like, well, you know, the kind of what you're talking about with like the system absorbing your message. If it's at the end of the day, if it's
it was a Super Bowl.
It's Super Bowl. But I will say, it did seem to get a lot of hate from anyone who seemed to be,
of course,
right wing. So that,
and I mean, like that's where we live now too. So like, whatever happens is going to be like an angry legion of these guys.
I mean,
but it's an interesting question.
Did his show that he did like 20 years ago. Like if he was alive to do another Super Bowl and did the exact same set he did, people would be mad because, you know, why is this black guy playing Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah.
Totally. And
that was a great Super Bowl.
Yes.
And to be fair, Kendrick definitely does have like, you know, political messages in there, but you know,
he does. And they're definitely, I think you're right though, like at least from my like interpretation, they're like political, like left progressive, but there are some they don't feel like maybe there's overt like communists or whatever that are rapping.
I don't think
Kendrick
he's
is
from,
like awesome. He's a beautiful artist, and that's okay too. Like I think, you know what I mean? Like it's not. There's also a tendency, or like I think we're moving in whatever era that does this, or it has done this, where it's like you want to ascribe good politics into good art. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way always. You know, like some real awful people, politically or otherwise, have made great art.
Morrissey. Oh, excuse me.
Right, sure, whatever. But you know what I mean. But like, and you don't like, or like people can change too. Like, you know, whatever.
Johnny Rotten.
But like, there is a tendency to also like try to ascribe a good sort of politics, your politics, to a piece of art that sometimes is strained. Like some people are just not comrades. They're good artists. Maybe they're liberals, but like, or something like they're not bad people, but like they're not like you know,
Yeah,
there,
it's
you
like
know.
trying to put the politics to like some Nirvana songs like Smells Like Teen Spirit or
Yeah.
Ghost Town by the Specials, which are not necessarily overtly political, but you can certainly there's certainly parts, something of that you can
Right.
actually take away with it. And also sometimes like lyrically, sometimes songs are just kind of vague. Like Depeche Mode put out a song a few years ago called Where's the Revolution? Where the music video is actually kind of fun because they're like Dave Gahan and Alan Wilder and Andy Fletcher, they're all wearing a Marx beard. Like while they're performing, it's a fun video, but like it's
a little
not,
struggle sesh.
yeah, it's there's not a lot of depth to it. Where same thing with like Saeed Babataliba's Revolution, which actually just like the whole sentiment is like, I just want a revolution. And like it came out like right around the time of Occupy. It's a great song. I mean, it's got such a killer hook. She basically now records as Sate, which I want to put that out there if people want to check out her music, because nobody could remember Saeeda Baba Taliba except for me. I'm like the only one who does, and she loves me for it. But that's another story. Anyways, she put out this song, put out a music video because it's in Canada and you can get funding for that kind of stuff. And the music video borrows a lot of aesthetics from Occupy, but there's not a lot of substance. Like there's not, like I said, it is a catchy song, but like there's not like, it's not like listening to a song by like the Proletariat, even like Scab, which is still a simple song, but like basically it's like, fuck you, Scabs, you're not real workers.
Right.
That's basically the song. That actually says a lot more than just I want a revolution, because that doesn't mean anything. Like I said, I still love that song. It's
kind of like if Whose Side Are You On didn't have the actual part about sticking with the Union, and it would still be an extremely powerful song in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's kind of nice to have that explicit call out,
There's a song that samples that with a hip hop song with Immortal Technique, who is also explicitly like a comrade. You know what I'm saying? Like, And I think it's also called Whose Side Are You On? I highly recommend that in your playlist. It is a good one. I remember like listening to it on the way to like Palestinian Solidarity Action, and it kind of like helped me like get inspired, so
there was this pretty funny tweet about Immortal Technique about like it's just like a very classic experience that like your like older brother or older friend like sits you down in his car and it's like, there's this song Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique that you got to listen to. And I sent it to my best friend from high school because I was like, you did this, which and it like makes you like make sure you're like listening to the lyrics, but
totally.
But that means a lot when you're in high school.
Kind of speaking of the lyrics here, what is your gold standard of a political song? I'll go first since I actually have one ready to go.
Okay.
It's Today's the Day We Fight Back by Boxy Fruvis. In 1996, there was a conservatives running to take over the province of Ontario, and Boxy Fruvis put together an album with a bunch of people, including Margaret Atwood, a political theorist whose name's escaping me right now, and bands like I'm going to blank on the names too of the bands, but one of the songs is A Bad Time to Be Poor by the Rheostatics. That's the other song that's on there. But Today's the Day We Fight Back to me is a gold standard because, first of all, it's about what happens when Republicans or conservatives in general take over. Like it talks about how they sell out the healthcare, the schools, and it outlines it. It's like if you can get real sick, hit yourself with a 2x4 because that's the Harris Story trick. Lyrics kind of making fun of that. Let McDonald's teach grade 3. Exxon run universities. And so like it outlines it and explains like They're trying to make you stupid so you could be slaves working for them and not thinking for yourselves. And they went through, outlined this whole plan, explained why they're doing that. And then at the end, today is, what are we going to do? Well, granted, they didn't really have much of an option. Their option, what their answer was to tie yourself to a tree. And because today's the day you fight back. I don't think that's necessarily the answer, sign yourself to a tree, but go on, like I think they're getting there. But as far as like the lyrics go, like actually having like, here's like what the problems are, describing it in detail, cleverly too, I might add, and then actually trying to come up with an answer, which I greatly appreciate. Not every song does that. Not every song has to do that either. But at least, there's, to me, that's kind of like the gold standard that I kind of hold a lot of protest songs to. And I know like, Where's the Revolution or I Want a Revolution, but that I brought up are nice sentiments, but like there's not that kind of depth to it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think of like just one or like what could be a gold standard. I do really think as far as like protest anthem that's like had or like not even a protest anthem, but like touched upon like protest music that had like kind of like huge, massive impact, is maybe like Working Class Hero, because by like not the most where the working class roots originated, Lenin, but I would say that like it has this like despair that it captures, but also like, and I guess it's a little bit different than like protest, or it's not like like what I'm blanking on the name, but what the other contributor wrote about like radical sort of joy or like building. It's not like that, but it really like the way it captures repetition, the drudgery, and like the sort of like mournfulness, something about that, like weirdly that popped into my head as like a song that like, I don't know if it's like the gold standard. Oh, there you go. Marxist Leninism.
Did you hear Bowie's version of it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That is, yeah.
I kind of like it better than the
lad.
Lenin version, but that's just me.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
which speaking of which, that album that it's on, he also has another political album, because that was when Bowie did Tin Machine in 1989, right. Which if you don't know, Bowie was like trying to find like new success, trying to like he kind of burned himself out in the 80s trying to replicate his hits at the early 80s, and so he wanted to kind of go back to rock and roll and formed a band called Tin Machine with like this teenage guitar virtuoso, Reeves Gabrels, who's currently a member of The Cure and has recorded, since this is Ben's show, I have to mention this. He's recorded with the Rolling Stones and Ozzy Osbourne. And then the rhythm section of the band was made up of Hunt and Tony Sales, which were Iggy Pop's Berlin era, band that Bowie put together for him as his rhythm section. And they're the sons of Soupy Sales. So, amazing band. And he also, but this is actually a Bowie written song called Under the God, which is just screaming about like how much he hates fascism and racism.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
Yeah, there's
it's a great album too, Tin Machine.
What was I thinking of? It's probably worth checking in the lyrics more, but like there's a song that like it's Pure Ubu did it originally, and then the Dead Boys Final Solution, which like kind of I guess is more of like an ironic like anti-fascist song more than I think like a full, because they're not like advocating for final
No, like
solution.
Foxy Fruit is a song about Rush Limbaugh. Yeah.
Right.
Which if you see them do it
that has a
live, they actually
element, I guess, like that, like the valence of like, I guess, seeing society sort of like collapse and from its ashes there in the 70s or whatever, and like pushing, you know, like I mean, there's also like overtly like left-wing bands like Gang of Four and stuff that like were like, you know, like explicitly talking about you talked about the proletarians too, you know,
out of
but
Boston.
right. Yeah.
I have. I was gonna say. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I was gonna say I have. Just by happenstance, I have one of the most explicitly left-wing popular bands. Their poster right behind me, Stereolab, is. They were like actually dismissed, I think, as like Marxist agit pop. I think,
Yes.
especially their early stuff, which is just kind of sometimes it'll sound like they're just almost being doctrinaire. But what's really great about it though is just like it's just really poppy, I think. So I think that like it creates this irony, which is really good. I think that the super earnest stuff can be sometimes hard. Like I think it's great, but it's harder for me to stomach at times. It depends. Like this, you guys should check out this new guy, Jesse Welsh, just because he actually wrote a song about. He has a song called "War Isn't Murder," and he has this song called about United Health. Like I tended to skip past the videos when they would come up on TikTok just because I was like, I'm not ready for how earnest this guy is. But I think it's I think it's awesome that he exists, and I think it's really so it shows, and the fact that he was on late night TV shows that there's like a market for like explicitly, you know, like actually about lyrics actually about what we're talking about, not just metaphorical, like Andy's saying. That said, whether it's going to be kind of co-opted, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, because we actually kind of saw in the early 2000s like a rise of acoustic musicians, but none of them really were like you know, doing traditional folk songs or writing songs like this Jesse
Wells guy.
But like, you know, I mean, I do love me a good, you know, worker uprising song. Like Tom Land and the Paperboys did an amazing version of Pound a Weak Rise, which is about I think this show in particular would appreciate the song because it name checks as a villain in the song a conservative economist. So
cool.
And it's about mine workers, right? You know, rising up, and then the government's like, oh yeah, we'll give you a pound a week rise, but we need to see more output. And so the workers are like, okay, fine, we'll do it. They put out more. They did the more output, and then the government's like, oh, we'll give you 7 and 6. Now get back to your job. and that's actually the like if you hear a bunch of versions of it, that line's never punched like in the Paperboy song. Because like all the music drops out, you just hear, "I'll give you 7 and 6 now. Get back to your jobs. Down you go, Jack. Down below." You know, right into the chorus, just like punches you. And then like the music comes back in at that moment because the Paperboys really like their nomenclature and inspirations, the Waterboys and the Pogues. You know, they kind of borrowed from that Irish tradition, but making it specifically Canadian, they're also kind of forebear, and one of their members is of the band Spirit of the West, but they're not very political. They're just they got a great song about drinking. I will say that.
Nice.
The second Canadian anthem, "Home for a Rest."
Yeah. Oh, I was just thinking, I mean, this is like, I guess pretty easy one, but like, let's lynch the landlord. You know, another probably gold standard of like punk rock, you know, politics one might ascribe to, not particularly doctrinaire, but pretty straightforward, but like, you know, probably, you know, and I'm not even like a huge Kennedy's fan, but it is definitely like right there. But you know, I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It's cool, probably, and I guess I haven't been like checking in enough, but I think it's cool that like people are like immediately, you know, responding to things like, I don't know, Luigi or like things like that. And yeah, there is like some hope in that, I guess, like that music like that can exchange. My band does have an anti-Elon Musk song about where he might potentially find himself. So you know, like it's like there is at least, I mean, like we know now that like there's like limits of what music can do or whatever, right? Like, but the same token, like whatever cultural production we have should continually at least like lift a mirror to like what's going on, or it doesn't have to do anything. Like there's different ways to protest, I guess, too. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think
it'd
I'd
be
want
like
every
Craft
song to be like, you know, like we have to abolish the Constitution and create a workers' council government. Like, I don't know if that's, you know what I mean? Whatever. Like, but like
even the proletariat doesn't do that.
No, exactly. And I think, and that's, I think, part of like the thing, or like Stereo Lab too, even or whatever. But like you can like hit the content without necessarily doing it in the same way of like, hey, everybody, you know, but also like tell everyone to like rally around the red flag, you know. Also,
Yeah.
but yeah,
For sure.
Yeah,
Well,
because you can also like Crass. I know I mentioned them in my opening, which like if you don't know who they are, they're an explicitly leftist anarchist. I think the group is a better description of their politics. That started a commune, and just kind of like would go on tour, come back to the commune, write a bunch of anti-establishment songs, go back out on tour, and I think they're still around to this day, if I remember correctly. Although they might just be living on the commune at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that's like a whole like that global punk house thing. It also it's like an avenue of left-wing stuff, you know, exchange. But like that's international. Years ago my band like played like a DIY space in Hamburg, and we got to go and like check out a couple places. But it's or like down in New York, of course, ABC No Rio or whatever. Those are, you know, but like that's like another, like I guess like now we just have to like continue to like build that up using the tools we know and probably new ones as well, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think DIY spaces are very important for this to happen too. Because like, I mean, like right now, I don't know if you saw me mention it on Facebook, but like we don't really have a DIY space in the area like we used to.
There's a few down in Holyoke or like here and there, but yeah,
specifically in Northampton there isn't one, which is
in Northampton there isn't,
because like Northampton has always been like a cultural center for the area.
There was like a short-lived one on like King Street. Oh, there was Red Cross House, but that's gone.
There's been a bunch over the years, to be honest.
Like there was like a good one, Red Cross House, that I remember that we even played like an open mic on their last night of being a punk house or whatever. It's I do agree that like it is a little, can be restrictive to like just, you know, you can't like fight the revolution at the bar.
I mean like you know, and
maybe you can, but like
and I don't mean to like, you know, knock, because we do have a lot of good venues too, like
of course
and but like that's different than a DIY space, because it's not a place where you can organize. It's just a place where you go and perform. And you know, as much as I love the Iron Horse, I have deep feelings about the Iron Horse. Summer of '96, my parents got divorced. My cat gets killed by a car. We got kicked out of our house because my dad didn't pay the mortgage, and then my girlfriend dumped me, like all in a matter of 2 months. And I found myself at the Iron Horse watching Moxie Fruvis, and realizing that life isn't necessarily that bad, and just always have that kind of sense of happiness whenever I see a show there. And so like, that venue means a lot to me, but it's not a DIY space. It is, however, public, like it is a co-op in a sense that like that the public actually does own it, but it is not quite the same as a DIY space. So I just I do think we should support it too, because it's great. I'm going to be seeing Spouse there in a few weeks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. No, I mean, it felt like that was always an avenue. Like when I moved to the Bay Area, like early 2000s, and I moved into like basically like a punk kind of house. Like 3 out of the 4 other people that lived there were like anarcho punks. Definitely.
So did you know Jason
we
Miles?
did Food Not Bombs. We marched, like all that sort of stuff. I wonder. So I'm very curious to see like what these kids are up to now. Some of them I've lost touch, but like,
do you know Jason Miles?
No.
Bitter Lake is his band.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But
good friend of the show. So
oh yeah. Huh. Yeah, no, I mean,
he's probably out celebrating Ben's birthday. So like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Why I didn't pull him in. But I think you two should definitely meet and probably find out that you all know the same people.
Could be, yeah, who knows? But like, yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I moved there from Cleveland, and it was just like such a shift to see like overtly kind of like left-wing stuff that was just like you would have like in Cleveland, but it'd be like in someone's house or like in a little dusty bookstore, but like stuff was just kind of more like out culturally, which was like both good and maybe also like limiting, I don't know, but I do remember like it was like those times like that, we'd go to like Gilman Street, which is like a collective art punk space, non-commercial space. We'd see like attempts at like, yeah, there was like definitely a lot of interface between culture, especially like punk culture, I guess. Maybe it's because I was there at that time or whatever, but also like radical, radicalism.
For people who don't know, Gilman's actually the scene where Green Day came out of.
That's right. Yeah.
And when they made it big, they got kicked out of Gilmore. Couldn't play there again, even though they still supported the place. They absolutely did support the place after they got kicked out. Yeah, and like the fans, the Gilman fans hated Green Day for selling out.
Right. I mean, they that was they were like one of the early popular cases of like selling out,
yeah,
like this is what happens, or whatever. But they've just sort of like, I guess
they did
they're
good.
Like elder statesmen, they're just like, they change the lyrics to criticize Trump in some of their music. So
yeah, I like I said, I think they did good for the most part, because they never were a political band.
Right.
So when American Idiot came out, it was a bit of a shock to a lot of people.
Right. But so was the presidency of George W. Bush.
Yes.
Should we get into well, I don't know if you have a list, Mark. I know, Andy, you have a long list.
Oh, I have a massive list, and I added it since I showed it to you.
Oh no! Well, I was gonna say,
wow,
but that's a good thing.
You're gonna think of everything.
Yeah, I put together a top 5, but it's not really. I'm not trying to claim these are the best 5 protest songs ever, but it's just what I have my personal list. But how do you want to do it, Andy? Do you want to list how many how big is your list at this point?
I think there's about 20 songs. I've already mentioned a few of them, but like there's probably like maybe close to 20 left.
Wow.
Okay.
Plus some albums.
Well, do you want to rattle off like 10 that are like the honorable mentions, or did you rank them?
No, I did not rank any of them.
Okay.
But Liberty Tea by Frank Tovey and the Pyros. Frank Tovey was better known as Fad Gadget in the early 80s. Decided he wanted to do folk music, basically. He got an Irish band, the Pyros, together, and they started doing like kind of not quite traditional songs, but pretty close to it. And Liberty Tree is just a great pop song that kind of talks about classism. It's really great. Let's see here. Mentioned those. Communists Have Music by They Might Be Giants. James Madison by Pamela Means, where she jokes around that she wrote a song with Jay Madison because the chorus is the atrocious thing he said, that the duty of the government is to protect the opulent minority from the majority, which is a horrifying statement. And anytime a liberal brings up James Madison, just makes me like, what? Why are you invoking him as a good guy? He was not a good guy. Of course, Pamela Means has written a bunch of great songs. She was actually the second person I invited after Mark, but she was busy tonight. And I will say, like, go check her out, just because, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, Color of the Skin, James Madison, just a couple off the top of my head there. Fantastic songs. Let's see here. God Thinks by Voltaire. Voltaire is this he was a fashion model goth guy out of New York City. He started doing like Morrissey-esque vocals with like over acoustic guitar and gypsy violins and a great rhythm section, and did a song about like people using God to do terrible things. And so it has lines like, God thinks that all babies should die, and God thinks that puppies should drown. And yeah, it's kind of horrifying if you don't realize the context of the full, if you don't listen to the whole thing. You're just like, wait, did he just say puppies should drown? What is happening here? But yeah, there's a horrible thing said in that song. Let's see here. War Pigs by Faith No More. I know Black Sabbath did the original version, but the Faith No More version, when the first Gulf War broke out, my little overly dramatic 13-year-old self locked myself in the room, cranked up my tape player, and kept playing my Faith No More tape, and then get to the end of War Pigs and rewinding it, which is ridiculous because it's not even at the beginning of the it's at the end of the side of the tape, so like you have to know when to stop it. And I spent like an hour doing that because I was like, something was really bothering me about the war, and like everybody was all gung-ho about it. I'm like, well, isn't war just bad? Like,
yeah,
and just just War Pigs in general, great song. But for me, it's the Faith No More version. Sorry, Ozzy. That's why Ben's not here, so I could say stuff like that. Let's see here. Cop Killer by Body Count. Great song about police violence. Body Count is Ice-T's metal band. And of course, I always have to mention Killing Joke. Did a bunch of really great political songs. The one I specifically wrote down was War Dance, which I love. Of course, 80s is still my favorite song, but I don't think the lyrics really are that political. It's one of those songs where you can make it political if you want it to be, but I really don't think it is. But 80s is the song that Nirvana and Metallica ripped off. And if you go listen to the song, it'll be like, oh.
Yeah, you can hear it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see here. Shut Up by Out Out. It's a very cathartic song. It's really simple. You just hear like somebody going, Bill O'Reilly, shut up! Fox News, shut up!
Yeah.
That's just the song right there. That's all it is. It's just listing off right-wing pundits and then screaming shut up after it. It's no deeper than that. I love it though. It really is. Out Out also did a great cover of Going Left Right, originally by Department S, but I have to mention that particular cover because I did the album cover to the cover album that's from. I think, Jake, we have the graphic.
Yes, sorry. I was getting my list together. Which was the
Right.
graphic?
Where is it? Here it is.
Perfect.
So yes, I did the cover to this. There's a few political songs on there. It's all covers from the 80s. It's definitely worth your time. But not where you should start if you actually want to know what Out Out sounds like. I love that album, but it's, go with Swan Dive. I think is a really good place to dig into Out Out, and then you can go explore from there. Which is Swan Dive is where Shut Up is from. Let's see here. Los Alamos by Jeff and Jane Hudson. It's off their brilliant album Flesh that came out in 1982. It's one of those records that people kept trying to collect because it's a great album and completely out of print, and then they finally put it back in print in the early 2000s. So absolutely check that out. Green Paper Slaves by Shaka Zoba. They're a local funk band that are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. So if you've never seen them, if you want to see a good funk band, all their songs are about politics. But I specifically pulled out Green Paper Slaves. Nice to hear that. Of course, Midnight Oil, a lot of their songs are political, specifically very Australian, which we never really kind of delved into. I specifically wrote down Beds Are Burning. Everybody does that song. It's honestly, it's a bop, but then it's also about killing indigenous people and how the federal government did that. And it's great that you can slip that into such a catchy pop song. Of course, two classics, Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, which we did. I did not mention in the intro, and same thing with Mississippi Goddamn by Nina Simone. I always think that Nina Simone is punk music, even though she's more closely attended to jazz and whatnot, but there's something punk about her. And I actually have two more. Click Click by Danny Michelle, which is a great honestly, it's just a good pop song, but it's kind of it's like I had a dream and I stole the clips, so when they tried their guns, the guns went click click. Just lyrics like that. And then the last one I have is I Live in Fear by David Francie. He's a Scottish Canadian artist. He immigrated from Scotland to Canada, and he's got this that kind of lilt to his singing. Does a lot of folk stuff, but I Live in Fear is this just driven, almost like angrily played a guitar with just this electric banjo on it, and it sounds more punk than his stuff normally is, but it's a great song. Of course, a couple albums: Harlan County, USA, The Songs of the Coal Miner's Struggle, the soundtrack to the documentary. Absolutely, just great protest songs straight through. Mermaid Avenue by Billy Bragg and Wilco. It's all the whole recording series is 3 volumes, I think, that they did. It's all Woody Guthrie songs. Woody Guthrie didn't record most of the songs he wrote, so it's kind of nice to actually have finally a version of it. He tried to because a lot of times Woody Guthrie would steal tunes. They tried to kind of bring those tunes and make it as close to Woody Guthrie in a way that they could, but still making it their own songs. And of course, I just wrote down Bad Brains because I think we didn't really talk about them, but they're very political, and Bad Brains are fucking great.
Yeah. You could throw in Minor Threat, who were quite overtly, or Fugazi later, who were quite overtly political. Fugazi, of course, never played for more than $10 cover or something.
I think it was $5. Yeah,
$5. Yeah, the $5, right? 8. Yeah. But who kind of famously coming from DC to were very overtly kind of political, often the children of federal workers.
If I didn't have the cancellations last minute like we did, I could have gotten one of the guys who organized the Rock Against Reagan tour. He actually
wow, yeah,
he works on an apple farm here in the valley.
Oh, wow, nice. Yeah. yeah, like you know, and there's also like songs like What's Going On.
Got Marvin
You
Gaye.
know, I mean, like there's so much. Like the thing about it is like almost all American music, if it's any good, is partially protest music. Maybe that's a little
Yeah.
too broad and
I
grand
don't know,
of
but
a
like,
thesis,
yeah.
but like it is where our good stuff comes from, is from their struggle, from the, you know, like all of like American forms of music, seemingly, you know, like I
Oh,
would
and
say.
you know what? I've just realized I forgot to put on the list. Whitey on the Moon, I think is the name of the song. Or,
Oh yeah. Gil Scott Heron. Yeah. Like
yeah.
a rat done bit my sister Nell, but Whitey's on the moon. Yeah, that was yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And of course,
And
Sly and the Family Stone was also very political too, and
mhm,
didn't make my list for some reason. And I love Sly.
yeah. Kind of sad too, like what ended up happening to Sly, but like losing all his money, drugs, blah blah blah. But yeah, like you know, there is I mean, I think quite a few groups that like channeled protest but through like joy, and it was like in this like soul groups, funk groups, disco or whatever, to a point that was like we're actually like the protest here in some ways is the fact that we're like explaining. It's like the blues thing where it's like we're coming through, but we're transcending and celebrating, which has maybe a political valence if you're like a poor black person, or you know what I mean? Like so you know but like yeah like What's Going On maybe is like a good for like a socio-critical kind of song, like pretty much is like hits about all the notes, considering it was on like a massive record and blah blah blah, and like considering when it came out, you know, 68 9, and but you know, like whenever it came out.
Do
And
you
like
remember in
everything.
the late '90s, Radio Shack rewrote the song so it was just about like what's going on at Radio Shack this week in sales?
Perfect.
Oh God.
Like the worst co-opting I've ever seen of a song.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, I could drop my 5. Well, okay, so the number 5, I just put it because I just put on this shirt, which is a Pavement shirt. So then I was thinking, what is Pavement's most anti-capitalist song? And I'm curious what people would say. I would argue off the top of my head, it is probably Grounded. Grounded is off of Wowie Zowie, but it has the lyrics. It's basically about these rich doctors kind of schmoozing at the table. I wish I could play it, but they say like
I wish we could play a lot of these songs, but
yeah. I'll just say my favorite lyrics are some of these parts, but they say where is it? He spoke of latent causes, sterile gauzes, and the bedside morale. He traipses around the table talking sentences so incomplete, and then the chorus comes in and he yells like, boys are dying on these streets, which it's not like super overt, but I think it's like I felt it really hard these days. I don't know. I feel like it's like a universal healthcare song. Malcolmus is a leftist, so I'll give him that. Again, probably not. They're not known for their political protest music, but since I was wearing the shirt, I was thinking,
Pavement. They're kind of their big song, that Cut Your Hair one.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is, yeah.
It's not overtly political, but it is talk about like commodification of art. It's like, ooh, I'm in a new band, or like special little band, and like the haircuts and like big hair. Like it is kind of like a slackervism, activism, slacktivism.
He he actually had a overtly political song in 2020 Malcolmus did, called Another Beautiful Bike Lane, that actually talks about like the cops that killed Freddie Gray and stuff like that. So I think
hell yeah, wow.
He decided he got a little bit more he left some of the irony drenched aspect of it, but it's interesting. And then, well, you mentioned Harlan County, so which side are you on? there's specifically this version I heard from like a really old Union documentary. That's my favorite version ever that I get. Those hit so hard though when those like really old, almost like anonymous recordings.
A lot of them are the Joe Hill songs, man.
Yeah. Because I have Stereolab, I did their Ping Pong song, which is Ping Pong is very that's the one I was talking about. It's very poppy. But specifically it has like the lyrics, bigger slumps and bigger wars and a smaller recovery, huger slumps and greater wars and a shallower recovery. You see, the recovery always comes around again. There's nothing to worry for. Things look after themselves. There's only millions that lose their jobs and homes and sometimes accents. There's only millions that die in their bloody wars. So yeah, it's hard to get actually that much more explicit than that. And that's over like the synth, like
that.
Oh, like a synth pop, yeah.
Kraut rocky 60s
kraut rock, yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. I love Stereolab, and they have quite a few. I mean, they have like the album Emperor Tomato Ketchup, which is like very explicitly, you know what I mean. But like, I loved when I found out, or I kind of looked into it a little and like saw what they were singing about, and I was like, that's even cooler. Because it does sound just lush and beautiful. You expect to hear songs about like walking in the park and, like, going on a moped or something, but it's like society's crumbling, capitalism is killing us, like we have to fight, we have to blah blah blah. Absolutely great. And
it's funny that like they were like, you know, it's like probably dismissed at the time because the 90s was not it was pretty easy to just dismiss anything overtly leftist. Then my last two
I think too, just to bring it up just about the 90s, to understand the 90s, PCU was a movie that came out, and the message of that movie at the end of it was who cares about your politics, man? Just have fun and listen to George Clinton.
Fun, man. History's over, dudes.
And so you're right. Just nobody cared about politics.
Which I've talked about on the show, I think before, but 2008 to 2015 was another period of history's over. I think for my I'm 33, so I think that was from my generation, the Obama years. I'm not trying to say everyone, but it was extremely depoliticizing because I started college right when he won. So I thought that was.
And I think the Biden years too, a bit so as well.
But it was less so.
But Obama was more.
Like I thought he was. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, because I remember it as like. I was like libbed out. This was my lib max period. You know, anything, blah, blah, blah. But then to me, it was like a period of actual like radicalization because Occupy starts around then. And like all the stuff that he talked about, like did not happen. Right. You know, we all know what happened. So it was like, but I do remember that zenith in 2008. Culturally, it is interesting to think about like what was going on at that time. And I wonder, like, you can kind of, I mean,
it would be interesting to track. It would be interesting to track for sure, because the music that we were listening to in college, I just don't think it was like the indie pop era. You know what I mean? Which was
right. I mean, I was living in Brooklyn at that point. And it was like, I mean, it was weird. It was a wild time to be there, but like, definitely indie. Yeah, it was like everything was like a new little pushing of some sort of like indie kind of thing. And then, of course, like I was living in like Bushwick, this area that like essentially like what happened to the Village or like Williamsburg, just like clubs came in first, and then like this, and then that. Like now it's kind of like moving on to like restaurants and like towers that are whatever. But it was like electronic music was kind of like, I remember like feeling like meeting also it's like indie and then like electronic, like EDM or like that. You know, like rave, what people used to call rave culture. I mean, it felt like those were like big dominant strains of at least that part of Brooklyn. But I wonder like how much of that lasts. Like I don't listen to Animal Collective or whatever anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see the different the different directions that some of that music has gone in. But I do think there was like a little bit of like an insular period. And I think also, you were in, I think, I don't want to say no one in college was politicized, but like the other thing is like you might have been paying a little bit more because there was Occupy in 2011, but you might have been paying a little closer attention. I think for a lot of us in college, it was a little like if you weren't super political to start with, you're like, okay, it seems like things are going okay. I'm just going to focus on me right now, which I think is a little bit of what I'm hearing had some of that energy. And there's the rebellion, but the rebellion is extremely individualized because indie rebellion was very like, I'm going to be quirky, I'm going to be weird, I'm going to be navel gazing and that kind of thing, which I feel like a theme that we're uncovering is there's these cycles, right, of one kind of blending into the other. Real quick, top two, just because I don't even need to really discuss them. I got All Right by Kendrick Lamar. I got the two Epidemic, but also Killing in the Name of. I think like if I was leading a fucking revolution, like that song makes me want to like jump through a wall. And there is
shit up, yes.
Yeah, and and like I was thinking about that song during the we were talking about co-opting because fucking Paul Ryan was a huge Rage fan, even though they had that line has the song about some of those who work for us are the same bomb crosses, and they have other songs that are super
right.
I always thought it was bomb crosses. It's because I had no idea what it meant when I was just rocking out to it when I was 16. I was like, I don't know what any of that means, and then you look it up later. I was like, oh, some of those that work forces are the same that burn. Okay, let me Google that. So I did enjoy like that.
They're
song.
A perfect agitprop. They nailed it, and it also like sounds good. Like they don't, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
And who just loved that bridge of "fuck you, don't I won't do what you tell me."
I mean, so I enjoyed that song as a protest song before I understood that it was leftist or I was leftist, but I think it's cool that you can kind of go back to those songs. Like I remember not telling my parents where I was and we're blasting Rage, blasting Radiohead.
So you're a creep, huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, blasting Rage and being like, yeah, fuck you, I want to do what you tell me. But it's cool to go back. So that one kind of works on both levels. But hard to get better. But again, anything can be co-opted, so you can't really blame yourself if you're a musician. And maybe not your song "Rest in Pissinger" would be hard.
Right.
For Paul Ryan to like it.
But... I mean, I could use some co-optation funds.
Well, Paul Ryan still might like it because it's Bob, but
No, well, you know what? I can see some anti-Kissinger Republican being like, "I like your stuff, man." You're like, I can.
Right.
Who
I mean,
knows?
it does seem like the grift is easier on that side. Imagine is a good. That's definitely like. Also, I think, like you mentioned earlier, sets a little bit of a standard for like what what a song like that kind of does. Also, maybe a little overwrought, but like that's what the song kind of does.
I mean, the power of Imagine is like they were singing it in New Year's Eve at the New Year's Eve like ball drop because we were watching it on TV. And like what she says, I think she sings like "In No Religion" too. And I'm just like, damn, like that is so. I don't even have beef with religion personally, but it's just like that is really interesting when these things are like these radical messages and these like kind of in these songs, like I don't know, it makes them kind of live on. I think speaking of Ben Shapiro, he has this takedown of Imagine, which is
no, that was Alex Jones. Remember?
No. Yeah, but so does Ben Shapiro.
Okay. Alex Jones has one where he actually like singing like "Imagine all the people."
No, this is like imagine all the people living for today. Well, what could get done economically? The GDP.
God.
Yeah, but it's actually It's actually a great video because it against its own purposes. I don't think.
Yeah. I'm curious
I read.
enough.
Yeah, I read.
I'm
I
a
read an
sicko
article.
enough to check it out.
No, I read an article about it, which is like it's just kind of like because he actually plays the song, and there's something really powerful and like he's trying to say this song is shit, and then he plays it. And I think to your point, Mark, it's like a little overwrought. But then when you listen to this fucking creep railing against it, and then you hear the like, simple, beautiful, plaintive, you're like, damn, this song actually is powerful.
A sweet song.
It's like really powerful when it's put against, this,
when
you
it's
just
heard
heard
by
it
Gal Gadot, and
Oh,
please, that's like the nadir of protest music is the COVID imagine.
You know what I was thinking? That's like an slightly off the wall concept, but like Parliament Funkadelic Chocolate City. Which, you know what I mean? Like they are definitely talking about like it's like, it's like we've got Philly, we've got DC, you know what I mean? And it's like it's definitely coming from it's doing all the P-Funk spacey funkadelic stuff, but then it also is actually like very much like, like we need to make the America a groovier and better place, which I'm with that. Yes.
Sound like I was shitting on George Clinton earlier, but like the movie, that particular movie, which does kind of sum up 90s politics really nicely, did kind of put George Clinton in a bad spot. And I think he is, there is a radicalness to like P-Funk and Funkadelic and all the Parliament and whichever version of his group there is that I can't think of, there's a radicalism to their stuff that sometimes is more pronounced than others.
Yeah. Well, I think, if we're going to put a bow on it, maybe music kind of has this both galvanizing and sometimes rebellious energy to it, right? But that energy can be directed in so many ways, like we've been talking about, right? Like it could just be a personal rebellion or fuck the system. But it is some of the songs we mentioned that actually name names. And this, like I said, this Wells guy who's coming up, like he has a United Healthcare song. He named Sheikh Netanyahu in his anti-war song. And so I think there's kind of a grounds, there is like a new appetite for this kind of thing. So it's a well-timed episode. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to name names, but it's nice, right, to actually name the enemies and the forces that are creating this system, as opposed to just like, fuck everything, fuck you, mom.
Right.
I just wanted a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I think it also
cool too,
I mean, it also like timestamps it a little. Like you hear something from like California Uber Alice, and it's like the governor, what's his name? But he was like actually like recently governor, even in the 2000s, but he was like Governor Davis, maybe. But it's like he's the secret police. And like in that song where it's like, knock, knock, knocking on your front door is a secret police, it's actually a liberal establishment, like a Democratic governor that's like name checked.
Yeah,
which I think is also kind of interesting.
He ran for president in like 92.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. And
do you guys remember that guy who conservatives got obsessed with recently?
Brown.
They thought, who was it? No, I'm talking about the folk singer who they thought was conservative, and because he blamed like fat people on welfare or something, and then he and then he came out as like a centrist, I think, and then they were like, oh, never mind, fuck you. He had like,
I mean, they're so excited to find anybody to like sing a song that they agree with, I guess.
They're
exactly. Desperate,
I mean, look at Tom McDonald.
Right.
Yeah.
That man has no talent.
Yeah. No, I mean, like it seems like an easier grift, I guess.
That's what Oliver Anthony, Rich Men North of Richmond.
So,
right. So it was a protest song with complicated politics, but it was funny
Yeah.
to see. Like, this.
It was
But I
kind of, yeah, like it hedged on like a I love America, but it was also working class, you know, and then
Exactly,
it was like
exactly.
and it like criticized like elites rather than the capitalists like it should have.
Yeah,
You
but at
know,
the end of the day, I mean, I just looked it up and it has 199 million views on YouTube. So
Right.
so the appetite for this kind of thing is huge right now, which is
there is a
really
question
a
about like
reflection.
how organic that is, because it does appear that like some right-wing groups were like
they got in on
fixing the numbers a bit, but there was a big organic there was an organic thing. I don't think it's as big as what you're thinking as it appeared to be, but he certainly did have a big organic.
Well, I remember when it first came, and I think I remember that aspect. I remember like people. I mean, I guess these days everything could be a fucking bot, but I think there's something about the just lone guy with a guitar, maybe lone white guy with a guitar, especially when it comes to the conservatives, like out in the woods performing. That is speaking to people right now. Hopefully it's not as racialized as as it might be a little racialized. You know what I mean? But no, but I mean I think this the other guy I was talking about is kind of like the good version of Oliver Anthony or whatever.
Anthony, I was trying to remember his name too, because he is like the perfect counter revolutionary. I guess he is maybe just like a. He's not like you said, maybe kind of more of a centrist, whatever. I'm sure he's not all like MAGA or whatever, but
no, he came out after.
Yeah.
He fucked his career, honestly.
yeah. I mean, that's the danger, I guess. But like, it's interesting to see. Like, I guess we'll kind of see like where it takes us. But like, I do think that like. Yeah, there's a lot of touchstones that we have in this awful time right now, which probably like give opportunities for like really killer songs about like Luigi or something stuff.
Yeah,
like
and
that
social
does
media,
seem like
social media too, because the record company's not going to put that out. But then when they see that they can make money on it after, then
of course,
put it out.
Yes, no, I mean, it's definitely, but it ends up, it's interesting because I do think there is probably like going to be an appetite for songs that point or like talk about these things in a certain way. Like if I think about like my own stuff, like with my band, where like, we do have some songs that are like overt. We have a song called Accumulation, and it's very straight. It is like probably too straightforward, and it's weird to me because like 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have written a song like that at all. I would have been like, where's the art? Where's the nuance? Blah, blah, blah. But like you look outside sometimes and it's just like, I don't know.
I agree with you. I think that there's this taboo on overt art. And I mean, like even, I mean, I understand people have differing opinions, but even someone like Adam McKay, who's like an overtly leftist filmmaker at this point, people hate on something like Don't Look Up because it's so overt. I saw that film. I'm not saying it was a perfect film, but I thought it was really powerful just because like I thought to me, it's less like people thought that it was hitting them over the head with like a facile opinion. But to me, it's more of like the living in the reality where this is the reality, especially on like climate change and what that feels like and the insanity. Cause like it's about, there's this meteor coming to Earth and the insanity that they feel. So I thought it was maybe you kind of have to be someone who already has, I don't know, maybe it's more of a preaching to the choir type movie in some ways but not in the way of like, I didn't feel like good about myself. I felt like insane. You know what I mean? And angry.
Because it is, So it is like kind of a good allegory, if nothing else, for like where we're headed. Yeah.
And if you remember too, like Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove was not particularly well received in the 60s. It was later on, hailed as the masterpiece that it is now.
Right. So, and it's pretty overt too. It's not like the most subtle. It's not an extremely subtle movie.
Not at all. Like the cowboy, right? Like that image that'll forever be seared in probably all of our minds of the cowboy riding the bomb, you know, you know, just wow.
Fading to white.
I think just saying things is
I mean, at this point, like
there's a value.
Yeah. And at this point, like, you know what I mean? It's like it does really feel like things are gonna get bad. Whatever happens, we're gonna get better. Or if we get better, it's gonna get worse first. So like at this point, like worrying about like not preaching about something, like at this point, I don't know. It's like it feels like it's like you almost, I don't know, like it does feel like more appropriate somehow. You know, weirdly this time, I don't know if it was just me, I don't know what happened, but like 2016, like I did write some sort of like political stuff. I wrote a song, like a solo song called "We Made It to Brunch," and you know, like I had my moments there, but but I felt weirdly like that time, 2016 and 20 was also like a weird cultural time where like the punk bands didn't get awesome, the cultural, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, and then COVID, and so that like really affects stuff too. But like this time around, maybe it's just me personally, but I feel like more sharp tooled, less hemming and hawing about like making art that says like screw you, because I guess maybe this time's more serious. It feels like everything's happening fast and serious and bad.
I think things are even worse.
You
know. But I think the aberrant nature of what people saw in Trump, you know, of like you said, like we're gonna get back to brunch, and he's kind of like as terrible as he was, you know, you could kind of see it as this aberration, right? And I think the rebellious nature got kind of subsumed in like the liberal platitudes, you know what I mean? But now that's such a big, and you know, I think the country is like way more fractured now, I think, right? Because also, I mean, in the sense that like it used to be a little bit more clear where the lines were, you know, where I think Trump just like picked up a little bit more of like, you know, the like a few people off in 2016 off of the edges, you know what I mean? Like, but now it's way more like the class, like it was like the first election that wasn't along like what your income was. I think didn't really predict who you were going to vote for the first time. Gen Z is becoming, there's like a rising crop of like male conservatives who are partly turned off by you know, like liberal, the facile nature of liberal culture, which is I think a mixed bag, you know. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's not good, but maybe from an artistic perspective, there's less of we kind of tried the like he's orange and he's and he's silly,
right,
yeah, and like because that dominated the rebellious culture. Back then.
I mean,
he's orange.
There's like the culture, I mean, there's like the culture war, right? But like that's not. It's both sides. It's a two-sided thing where obviously like Snow White comes out and every conservative is mad because I don't know, not enough white people, whatever, video games, whatever it is, like whatever their stuff is. And then
Snow White's like part Hispanic, I think is their problem.
Oh, that was it, right? Yeah. So and then like the liberals too, it was like there was maybe an issue that got a little bit like off-putting to some, where it was like we're gonna signal so hard that we're like cool. Like that we are on the right side, that we are like this character. And it was a little too, some of it made for like unfortunate stuff too, or like stuff that sold even the thing he was talking about short, maybe. But like, you know, and it gets a little dicey. Like, I don't want to say, like, I think it's cool that like Snow White is, you know, like not white or whatever. Like, I think that's great. But like, you know, but the way it kind of went down, and I feel like, like the Trump years, it was like the culture was like maybe more unified on a mono rod scale of like, we don't like this guy's like not cool, and we're gonna like signal this stuff, and we're like the cool, not racist people who are like cool and we're woke or whatever. But now, of course, it's like, you know, like the other side, and they're just, like where like the liberals would get mad about some, like maybe a little overzealous or whatever. Like, I don't want to get into it, but like, they might get into like canceling an 18th century poet or something for something. And it's like, maybe, I don't know. Okay, whatever. But then like the same zealotry is on the flip side with the conservatives who are like, oh, like she's like the boobs are too small, the blah, I don't know, whatever. Like these guys are like, like, and it's like there is a weird like mirror imaging thing there. Like,
well, I also think like too, we have you heard of the theory of the long tail?
I'm not.
So basically, like pop culture is kind of a graph where like most of it would be like for like the longest time, the bulk of it was like sticking up, and then there'd be like a short tail. But as the internet culture, kind of started dividing things up, the tail got longer and longer. And I think the mass culture got smaller and smaller. And I think we're kind of living in an era now of the long tail, where every like little niche is has its own pop. And there isn't that massive, maybe Taylor Swift's like one of the last few remnants of the old, mass system. But or in sports, like are the last couple refuges of that. So now I think we're too much living in that long tail, and that's what it is. It's just like it's it's hard to organize whenever everything's so diffuse in the long tail, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
it does to me.
Yeah,
I think as that's as good a note as any to probably wrap up, because we actually gave you 23 extra minutes of content. But first,
there's no post game, so
Yeah. I have an early flight tomorrow, but I want to thank Andy for putting the show together, and Mark for joining us as always.
Yeah.
And so, what should the people know about you, Mark?
So I play in a band called Teen Driver. We have an EP. Oh, there you go. Yep. That EP, No AC, is on Bandcamp. And there are cassettes, or you can download it. And I guess if you are in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, we are playing right there at the Rendezvous. Thank you. This is great. With two lovely bands, Hardcore, Grammar, Horn, Wren, punk-ish show. I feel like there will be some protest music. There's an action shot. But yeah, we will definitely be doing this song about where we might put like a certain guy from South Africa, and like what might happen. Like a vertical kind of a thing that kind of extends.
Okay, I could
like a Pokemobile.
Anyways, yeah. Sort of like part of a house, but just like the one part, and then you just kind of arrange it in rows. Anyways, but no, there might be some protest music. We'll be playing there. Thanks so much for having me. I love it was so great. I wish I'd prepared a list. But I do think that it was really cool to talk about. There's so many different facets to like how you could talk about protest and music. So it was really great to be on here and do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for bringing your expertise to the show. And Andy, anything that we need to be plugging, or have we told the people everything they need to know?
I mean, just keep tuned. As soon as I have a date, keep tuned. Just circle the month of June still. Just keep that circled, because I will be having a solo art show.
Nice.
I've shown as part of a group at these at a circ before, but this is the first time it's just me. So
nice.
Like I said, look forward to that in June.
Okay. Well,
awesome.
We'll be there. And I think with that, we're going to close it out. Have a great night, everyone. Listen to those protest songs. We'll put out some version of a playlist for some of the songs that we put together, so that will be kind of a lasting memory of what we talked about. And with that, left is best.